Thank you for joining me for another Quick Hits conversation. I'm Dr. Robyn. With me today, I have Franne McNeal, Matt Douthit, and Ed Fronczkowski. I want to ask the question, what does it mean to be easy to work with, but without being a pushover? Matt, can you kick us off, please?
When I think of this, I think it's generally when you're working with, several people, it's really about bringing communication skills to the table.
I think that, those two things are, they're sort of exclusive of each other. So being easy to work with, to me anyway, it's keeping in mind that business is all about relationships.
Mm-hmm.
And building and nurturing those relationships, being an active listener, looking for solutions that work for all the parties. I mean, that's all part of that. A lot of times I think that the person who, is just kind of being a pushover is not necessarily the easiest person to work with. Because that's oftentimes not an effective way to reach whatever goal, we're trying to reach. I do think that, I've learned to set boundaries so that, I try to, be somebody who's easy to work with, but there are just, some limits that I need to set, for my own, my own sanity and my own effectiveness.
Mm-hmm.
There are just some people that you do really have to kind of set up those boundaries and say, no, I'm not going to let this person, steamroll over me.
Mm-hmm.
I like to understand, what is that relationship? Where are we going? What's our reason for coming together? What's our reason for being in the project or the team or the workspace together? And then use that to find common ground. So it is less about being a pushover. I don't want to put that in the front of my mind. What I do want to understand is, how can we get done what we're supposed to get done, given that we're going to be working with each other for a period of time. So let's find out, aside from the project, what we might have in common, so that if things get a little bit sticky, we can pull on those. And again, I'm less concerned with this whole issue of being a pushover. When people get passionate about a topic, they'll, it'll either come through as a positive or maybe something that they're not willing to move on. And it's just, again, important to understand where they stand on that. I think the other thing that I wanted to mention is, a big part of communication is based on perception. So in addition to having the goals and understanding the relationship, it is about reading the body language.
Yeah, I know for me, I feel like it's much easier for me to be easy to work with, which is, more flexible, more willing to engage in what do you need, if I feel like I'm being respected. When I reach that point where I feel like someone is taking advantage of me, then my easy to work with-ness, that's not really a word, we're going to go with it anyway, goes away. And I become much more boundary of, these are my boundaries and you can't go across them. Do you think that respect has something to do with being easy to work with?
Easy to work with is defined in the, it's the other person sort of sets that. So I've worked with people that are narcissistic, they're really evil, they're Machiavellian, and they're horrible to work with. And so their definition of easy to work with is that you pledge loyalty to them, and that's the end of the story. And if you don't, you're an enemy. It's like their side or nothing. And then I've worked with people that, again, if you take the disc, sort of, people that sort of just want to get stuff done, or people that, want to have community, or people that, just want to focus on accuracy. And so it just depends.
Matt, Ed, what are your thoughts on respect being an aspect of being easy to work with or not easy to work with?
I always find it, personally, I find it easier to work with people that I respect. So I'm sure the opposite works as well. I guess that, I wouldn't have thought of respect in terms of easy to work with, or being a pushover. If somebody respects me, then I shouldn't need to worry about becoming a pushover, and vice versa.
Matt?
Yeah, I think that there's a gray area in there. Respect's a huge part of it, but you can have everybody having some mutual respect, but it's almost as though there are some people don't have the self-awareness, and they dominate because that's the way they think. Okay, I'm in business, so it's about domination. And you can respect the people around, but you just say to those kind of people, those kind of personalities, just say, I've got one gear, and this is the only way I know how to operate. And I think the pushover part comes when those other people see where the conversation is going, and we're not going to meet our goals, or we're going to end the meeting and there isn't going to be clarity. I think that the key is for those people, not the lack of pushover, is intervening and changing the course or the tone, or slowing it down, or asking for clarification. And it's amazing how you get the consensus, because usually the other people in the room want somebody to step up and do that. Because to me, it's the dynamic has always been somebody has been too dominant, and not allow a consensus to build. It's just an example of, usually it's in the early stage of the meetings where you're trying to accomplish something, and everybody's figuring out what the dynamic is and what the relationship is. I think Franne was talking about that, and I think that's really key. But not being, it's the old adage, how murderers take advantage of people's good manners. I think meetings are like that, where you let somebody blather on for too long. What would you do if I just kept talking, right?
Right.
Robyn, you'd have to intervene in a very nice way, and that would be the end of it. Hopefully I would get the hint, right? So I'm done talking. So.
Well, I think that part of being easy to work with, at least for me, is being willing to understand someone's point of view, see where they're coming from, seeing where you can be supportive of what they need, all of that kind of thing. But you can take it too far. And I think, Ed, you were saying that if you're too easy to work with, then you're just like, oh, I don't care, just tell me what you want. And then nothing gets decided. So that's a problem too, from that side as well.
I think Matt said something very important when he talked about being self-aware. Because, I can think of, situations over the years where I've fallen into both categories, where, I was not easy to work with, or been the pushover. And all those times, it always had to do with me not being self-aware. I didn't realize I was not being easy to work with. Because I didn't take a step back and take a look at me and where I was. Self-awareness it's so important in business. And I think a lot of people don't give it enough credit.
Yeah, I agree with that. I've definitely found for me that I can be, how do I explain it? Like I use kind of the volcano method to conflict resolution, which is the idea that it's fine till it's not fine. And if you compare that to being easy to work with, I'm easy to work with until I'm like, okay, now I'm way past my boundary and I have to push it way back. And I had to learn in business that set a boundary, and it's easier to defend it when you're close to it than once you get way beyond it. And then people are going to be really offended when you're like, nope, sorry, I'm no longer easy to work with. And now I want the line all the way back to wherever.
So I want to bring in another concept. We talked a little bit about respect and self-awareness. It's authenticity. So you do have to show up as yourself. So I often, when I'm doing public speaking, I'll weave in early into the discussion that I'm the oldest of 4 girls. So I am used to telling people what to do. And I'm also used to being ignored because I'm the oldest of 4 girls. So, at a very early age, I recognized that there's this balance, understanding that if it's a very important issue where I am placed as the leader, I am going to take that leadership role.
Well, I love that we've touched on authenticity, and a little bit we talked about being vulnerable, being authentic, being who you really are. We've talked about respect, and I love that so much. And I think that that's a great place for us to end this conversation, because that is our 10 minutes. So thanks so much. And I look forward to having this conversation with you again very soon.